Hi everyone and welcome for this brand new video about how to use your airbrush on some vehicle. This time I'm going to paint a Rhino from my Sons of Horus, but you can use it to paint all kind of miniatures. By the way, you can from the Army Painter hair range, you can try to use some buys and eye color, because you can see on the different range of Army Painter hair, you can see how color you can use as base and how color you can use to highlight your base. So that's pretty useful if you want to decline this tutorial on all your army you want. What's next? So don't hesitate to subscribe, like and post a comment if you have any kind of question. By the way, you can always support me on Patreon, so you will have access to more contents and you will support me financially to continue to give you more and more content. I let you with this tutorial and I see you at the end for the conclusion. I have primed in black two different Rhino, and now I'm going to apply my first highlight with Renew Spell and my second highlight with Exile Green. So I add some medium into my airbrush, and now I'm going to add some Renew Spell for my first highlight. I diluted by an half. Half medium and half paint. So remember, the first layer is not here to be very covering in the first step, but just to apply the first layer of color and giving the direction of your light. So I think my paint is a little bit too much diluted, so it's not enough covering in my opinion. So I just let the first Rhino being totally dry, and I start on the second Rhino by applying my new mix with less medium and more paint. This time I take my Rhino just by parts who are going to be in metallic color. It will be really more easy. So remember to don't try to have the final result in only one layer. Just take the time and step by step you will see the color appears. If you focus too much on your surfaces just to see the results, you are going to make some mistakes. So just move on and just make one layer, a second layer, and step by step you will see your color appears very slowly. And layer after layer, you will keep and find the intensity you want. So the result is here, but now I'm going to clean some few with some airbrush cleaner my airbrush. I'm going to put just one like that, or two, no more, and let the paint being totally dry before I'm going to apply the second layer. It can be really quick, but waiting just a few is always really important. By the way, I'm going to apply again the same color just to have a more strong color before I'm going to apply my second layer. And now I continue with my second layer of Renew Spell. This time I just had one part of medium for two parts of Renew Spell, just to be sure it's going to be enough covering. Remember, this is my second layer, so don't hesitate to, it's always better to do 2 or 3 layers and have something pretty clean and enough with enough intensity than trying to make it in only one step and make something bad. Take your time. Even if airbrush is going to make you gain some time by trying to make it too quickly, you are going to make big mistake. We are going to make you lose time. and here is the first Rhino I start, and as you can see, the paint was really too diluted and very not covering, and I'm not sure it's going to be a part of this video, but I think it can be interesting to show you sometimes some mistake you can do, and the best way, as you can see, is just to wait the paint is totally dry and come back and make a second layer. Always take care to clean your bottle of paint, because all these small imperfections, if they are going to go inside your airbrush, it's going to make some trouble about your airbrush. So as you can see, I don't touch the up part of my Rhino and focus on the side, just because I already push a layer on the up part and need it to be totally dry. So with a hair dryer, I come back with my with a hair dryer, I come back on the paint and make it being dry more quickly, so I can apply a second layer of this color directly. So I just apply one more layer and I focus really on the surfaces I want the more highlight. Remember, we need to have a very opaque color of our first highlight, just to be able to push our second highlights in the surfaces we have a clear color of our first highlight. What I want you to understand is, if I want a nice transition between my different color, I really need to have this first color very strong to put into these surfaces my second highlight. If not, if it's not the case, I will have some trouble about my transition, and I have not necessarily good transition if my first layer is not very strong on some few parts. And now I'm going to apply some exile green on some small surfaces into my previous highlight, and I'm not going to reach the part where I'm going the more dark. Just to remember, that's why we need a very clear surfaces of our previous color into this one. We are going to apply our new highlight. Remember, we are not going to try to have a very strong color in first step, just very global highlight. It's pretty interesting to work on two models in the same time, because it lets the time to the paint to be totally dry on the first model before you are going to apply a second layer. And now I'm going to apply some black color on all my metallic parts, and all parts I want to see in a different color. For my Sons of Horus, for example, I like to apply some black surfaces. I'm going later to highlight directly with my airbrush. But for me, it's more easy to choose some different surfaces who are easy to prime in black than doing some paint who are going to take me more time to apply my masking tape and all the different steps. So here is the result after I primed all the parts I want in black. By the way, I primed in black all the parts will be black at the end, but also the black, the part will be in metallic at the end, like this part and this one, just because it will be more easy for me to have a good visibility about how it's going to stay in this kind of color, and all will change. And now I come back with some uniform gray diluted by one part of uniform for two parts of medium, and now I'm going to apply that on the party we are going to stay in black. That's going to be my only highlight. And as you can see, I spray my color to the back part, as I do for the green part. And now I'm going to apply some gunmetal color from Army Painter on the different parts we are going to be in metallic. So I use some classical brush for that, some basic brush for the small parts, and for the more large parts like this one, I'm going to use the dry brush from Army Painter, just to covering large surfaces more quickly. I try always to not dilute so much the metallic paint because I think it's more easy to apply like that, and it's more covering, and for me that's some few good reason to don't dilute too much the metallic paint. And now with my dry brush I'm going to apply my metallic on all these parts. I try to let the recesses in black, so my contrast will be perfect. And now I come back with some Gravelord Grey, some speed paint, and I'm going to apply with basical but very thin brush into all the different very strong recesses. And the paint is really liquid, so it's going to go really easily into these recesses, and that's perfect to create all the different very strong recesses. If you make some mistake, you can remove just a few. That worked pretty well. Don't hesitate to charge a lot your brush, so the paint will go more easily into the line. I continue with some Gravelord Grey again, but this time I'm going to apply on all the metallic part just to push my shadow into this part. Remember, you can always pushing into the recesses your Gravelord Grey with a very thin brush just to increase the shadow into the recesses, like for example right here. So now I'm going to use some caustic red from Army Painter mixed with some black from Army Painter 2, and with this very dark brown I'm going to tap with some foam, some blister foam on different edges of my Rhino. And that's going to give more life to by this battle damage. Remember, when you create this kind of battle damage, the surface we are going to take more damage a lot of time is edges, and remember to try to create some very different form of battle damage every time you can. As you can see, I tap my color with the foam, and sometimes I'm going to make a small movement just to create some different kind of battle damage. Remember to go slowly and make it step by step, just because after that we are going to have all this battle damage. We need to edge highlight every one of these, so remember that, just because it's going to take more time. And now we start using our paint to create our edge highlight, and for that I'm going to use some exil green for all the green parts and some uniform gray for all the different black surfaces and black parts. And I am going to apply this color with the side of my brush on every edges of my vehicle. And by the way, on the, just in the back of every one of our battle damage. And by this way I'm going to give more volume on all my different battle damage and on all the surfaces of my vehicle. This step is pretty long, and you can always, if you really want just a very quick battle ready miniatures, you can skip this step, but for me it's going to give really more life to your miniatures. And even if it's take some few times, I think it's a good things to do, really. And after I'm going to apply the same things but with a uniform gray on the black surfaces. You can see that on my palette I have some point of white just under the two different color, and I use it just because sometimes I'm going to apply my highlight on surfaces who are going to be already very lightful, and in that case I'm going to add just some few, as you can see, just some few whites to pushing one more time my highlight on these surfaces. So it's done. Thanks again for watching. I really hope you enjoy this tutorial. Don't hesitate to post a comment to tell me if you like this kind of content. And by the way, if you have any kind of question, that's always welcome. You can always support me on Patreon and you will have access to more content for sure. For example, for this two tank, I will probably make better tutorial to show how to create some heated metal on the end of some parts and adding some pigment on some few parts of my Rhino. What's next? So I hope you enjoy and I see you soon for the next tutorial, my friend. Bye bye.